You are busy. You have been busy for as long as you can remember. Your calendar is full. Your to-do list never empties. You say yes to things before you have finished saying yes to the last thing. And yet, at the end of most days, you have a quiet, uncomfortable feeling that you did not move forward on anything that actually mattered. That feeling has a name. McKeown calls it the paradox of success. The better you get at something, the more opportunities come your way. The more opportunities come your way, the more you try to do. The more you try to do, the more diluted your energy becomes, until the very success that opened the doors is the thing that stops you from walking through any of them with full force. Essentialism is the cure. Not a productivity hack. Not a time management system. A complete reorientation of how you decide what deserves your life. The philosophy is 3 words: less but better. Part 1: The Essentialist Mindset. Most people operate on an invisible assumption. They believe that if they can just do more, manage more, say yes to more, everything will eventually come together. McKeown calls this the non-essentialist trap. It is not laziness that destroys most people's output. It is the relentless, undisciplined pursuit of more. The non-essentialist believes everything is important. The essentialist knows that almost nothing is. This is not cynicism. It is mathematics. If you have 10 priorities, you have no priorities. The word priority was singular for 500 years. It entered the English language in the 1400s and it stayed singular for centuries, because the concept of having multiple top priorities is logically incoherent. You cannot have 5 number ones. Yet somewhere in the 20th century, organizations and individuals began speaking of priorities in the plural, as if the word itself could be stretched to accommodate the demand for more. McKeown wants you to feel the full weight of that shift. Because the moment you accepted multiple priorities as normal, you handed control of your life to whoever was asking the most loudly. The essentialist takes that control back. Not by doing more things better. By doing fewer things, but doing them at the highest possible level of contribution. There are 3 core beliefs at the foundation of the essentialist mindset. The first: choice is not a thing you have, it is a thing you do. Most people treat their choices as if they were given to them from outside. They speak of having no choice, of being forced, of circumstances leaving them no option. But the ability to choose cannot be taken from you. It can be forgotten. It can be surrendered. But it cannot be removed. The moment you reclaim the act of choosing, actively, deliberately, with full awareness, you become an essentialist. The second: almost everything is noise. McKeown draws on the Pareto principle, the idea that roughly 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results. But he pushes further. In his view, the ratio is more extreme than most people are willing to admit. There are a tiny number of activities in your life that produce the overwhelming majority of your meaningful output. Everything else is filler. The non-essentialist cannot tell the difference. The essentialist has trained themselves to see it clearly. The third: trade-offs are real, and pretending otherwise is the source of most overwhelm. You cannot have everything. Every yes is a no to something else. The non-essentialist tries to avoid this reality by saying yes to everything and hoping the trade-offs will somehow not materialize. They always do. The essentialist does not ask, "How can I do all of this?" They ask, "What is the cost of this choice, and is the return worth it?" These 3 beliefs are not complex. They are, in fact, obvious once stated. The difficulty is not understanding them. The difficulty is living them, in a culture that rewards busyness, punishes saying no, and mistakes motion for progress. Part 2: Explore the disciplined pursuit of less. Before an essentialist can eliminate, they must first explore. This sounds counterintuitive. If the goal is to do less, why begin by looking at more? Because you cannot make a genuine choice about what matters if you have never seriously examined your options. McKeown argues that most people never explore their options with real discipline. They take the first reasonable path that appears and commit to it without asking whether a better path exists. The essentialist creates space, deliberately, protectively, to think, to look broadly, to ask what is actually possible before narrowing down. The first tool of exploration is permission to think. In a culture that glorifies being busy, thinking is undervalued. Sitting with a problem, walking without a destination, reading widely without immediate application, these feel like indulgences. For the essentialist, they are the work. Without protected time to think, you will always react. You will always be behind the demand rather than ahead of it. Some of the most effective leaders McKeown profiles in the book are notable not for how much they do but for how much time they protect for undistracted thought. The second tool is the power of play. McKeown makes a case that may surprise readers coming to this book from a productivity angle. Play, unstructured, exploratory, low-stakes activity, is not a distraction from essential work. It is one of the primary ways the brain makes novel connections, reduces fear of failure, and generates the kind of wide-angle thinking that leads to genuinely important insights. The non-essentialist cannot afford to play. They are too busy. The essentialist understands that play is how you find the things worth being serious about. The third tool is sleep. This is not a wellness chapter. McKeown includes sleep in the exploration section because sleep is one of the highest leverage inputs to clear judgment, and clear judgment is the foundation of every essentialist decision. He cites research showing that sleep deprivation does not just reduce performance, it destroys the brain's ability to evaluate its own performance. The tired mind does not know it is compromised. It continues to make decisions with full confidence while operating at a fraction of its capacity. The essentialist protects sleep the way an athlete protects training. Not as a luxury. As a prerequisite. The fourth and most important tool of exploration is the question McKeown calls the selective criteria test. When evaluating any opportunity, option, or commitment, the essentialist does not ask, "Is this a good idea?" They ask, "Is this the best use of my time and energy right now?" The standard is not good enough. It is, "If I were not already doing this, would I choose to start it today?" If the answer is not a clear and enthusiastic yes, it is a no. He offers a practical scoring method. If you are evaluating an opportunity, imagine a scale from 1 to 100. If it does not score at least a 90, reject it. The logic is clean. If you use a standard of 70 or 80, you will end up with a life full of pretty good commitments and no room for the exceptional ones. The bar must be high enough that most things eliminate the internal process. Exploration without elimination is just research. The essentialist must cut. And cutting is where most people stop, because cutting means loss, or at least the feeling of loss. McKeown devotes significant attention to the psychology of why elimination is so difficult, because understanding the resistance is the only way to move through it. The sunk cost fallacy is the first obstacle. You have already invested time, money, energy, or identity into something. Stopping now feels like admitting that investment was wasted. But the investment is already gone regardless of what you do next. The only question is whether you throw more of your life after it. The essentialist asks, "If I were starting fresh today, would I choose this?" If not, the sunk cost is not a reason to continue. It is a reason to stop. The endowment effect compounds the problem. Research in behavioral economics shows that people value things more simply because they own or possess them. The same item feels worth more to you if it is yours. Applied to commitments, this means the projects, roles, and habits you have accumulated feel more valuable than they actually are, simply because they are yours. McKeown suggests a reframe: pretend you do not own this commitment. Pretend someone else is proposing it to you fresh. Would you accept it? That question bypasses the endowment effect and gives you a cleaner read on the actual value. Fear of missing out is perhaps the deepest psychological trap. Every no carries with it the fear that the thing you declined will turn out to be the opportunity that changed everything. McKeown addresses this directly. He argues that the fear of missing out is fundamentally a failure of confidence in your own judgment about what matters. When you know your essential priority with clarity, missing out on everything else does not feel like loss. It feels like the correct price of admission for the life you actually want. The concept of uncommitting is McKeown's practical tool for elimination. It is not enough to stop saying yes to new things. You must actively audit your existing commitments and remove the ones that no longer meet your essential criteria. He suggests asking, if this were not already on my plate, how hard would I work to put it there? If the honest answer is not very hard, it needs to go. He also introduces the idea of editing as a skill. The best film editors, the best writers, the best executives are distinguished not by what they add but by what they are willing to cut. A great edit is invisible. What remains feels inevitable, essential, clean. McKeown argues that the same skill applied to your life produces the same result. What remains after rigorous elimination feels not sparse but exactly right. Part 4. The courage to say no. None of the above works without the ability to say no. And saying no, McKeown argues, is one of the most underrated and undertaught skills in professional and personal life. The social pressure against no is immense. Saying yes feels generous, collaborative, agreeable. Saying no feels selfish, obstructive, difficult. But McKeown reframes the entire dynamic. Every time you say yes to something non-essential, you are saying no to something essential. The choice is not between yes and no. It is between this and that. Once you see it that way, the courage to decline becomes easier to locate. He distinguishes between a no to the request and a no to the person. You can decline an ask without rejecting the relationship. In fact, McKeown argues that a clear, honest no is more respectful than a vague, reluctant yes that you will ultimately underdeliver on. People would rather know where they stand than receive a hollow commitment. He also makes a practical observation about the social discomfort of no. The discomfort you feel when declining something typically lasts seconds to minutes. The discomfort of a non-essential commitment you said yes to can last months or years. The essentialist learns to tolerate the brief discomfort of the no in order to avoid the prolonged suffering of the wrong yes. McKeown offers a range of practical responses for situations that make no difficult. The most powerful, a graceful no that references your essential priority. Not "I'm too busy," which is both vague and an indirect complaint, but "I'm not able to commit to this and do it justice right now. My focus is on X." This is honest, specific, and positions the no as a matter of standards rather than availability. He also addresses the yes by default trap. Many people say yes not because they have thought about it but because yes is the path of least resistance in the moment. The essentialist builds a pause into every request. Before answering, they ask, "Does this meet my criteria?" That pause, even a brief one, moves the decision from automatic to deliberate. Part 5. The essentialist approach to decisions. Beneath all of this lies a deeper question: how does an essentialist actually decide what their essential priority is in the first place? McKeown's answer is built on the concept of the essential intent. An essential intent is not a mission statement. It is not a vague aspiration. It is a single, concrete, inspirational goal that is specific enough that you would know when you had achieved it and meaningful enough that the achievement would matter. He contrasts this with two common failure modes. The first is the bland strategy, a goal so broad and safe that it provides no real guidance. Be the best or add value or grow sustainably are non-choices disguised as strategy. They exclude nothing and therefore decide nothing. The second is the concrete but uninspiring goal, a target that is measurable but empty. Hitting a revenue number or a follower count is not an essential intent unless you know exactly why it matters and what it is in service of. The essential intent lives at the intersection of meaningful and actionable. It is the answer to the question, if I could only accomplish one thing in the next 1 to 3 years, and I knew it would define this period of my life, what would it be? Most people find this question uncomfortable. That discomfort is useful. It is the signal that you are getting close to something that actually matters. Once the essential intent is established, McKeown argues, decisions become dramatically easier. The essential intent functions as a decision criterion. Every new opportunity, request, or commitment gets evaluated against it. Does this move me toward my essential intent or away from it? If away, the answer is almost always no, regardless of how appealing the opportunity looks in isolation. Part 6. Execute, making essentialism effortless. An essentialist does not just think differently. They build systems that make the essential the default so that the right choice requires the least effort, not the most. McKeown's word for this is execution without friction. The non-essentialist relies on willpower to do the right thing. They fight their environment, their schedule, and their impulses every day in an exhausting battle to stay on track. The essentialist designs their environment so the battle rarely needs to be fought. The first execution tool is creating a buffer. The non-essentialist plans optimistically. They assume best-case scenarios, ignore the possibility of things going wrong, and build schedules with no slack. When reality arrives, which it always does, with its delays and complications and unexpected demands, the non-essentialist is immediately overwhelmed. The essentialist plans for reality. They add a buffer of 20 to 50% to every time estimate. They assume something will go wrong. When it does, they are prepared. When it does not, they have space to think. The second execution tool is removing obstacles rather than adding effort. When progress on something essential is slow, the instinct is to push harder, more hours, more intensity, more forcing. The essentialist asks a different question: what is the slowest point in this system? What is the single constraint that, if removed, would make everything else flow faster? They focus all their energy on that one constraint rather than applying effort uniformly across the entire process. This is the difference between grinding and leverage. The third execution tool is progress as the primary motivator. McKeown draws on research showing that the single greatest source of motivation in meaningful work is the feeling of making progress. Not praise. Not money. Not recognition. Progress. The essentialist structures their essential work so that small, visible wins accumulate consistently. They celebrate the minimum viable progress, the smallest possible step forward, because that step creates the momentum for the next one. This leads to one of the book's most practical frameworks, the minimum viable preparation. Rather than waiting until conditions are perfect to begin, the essentialist starts with the smallest action that constitutes genuine forward movement. A paragraph rather than a chapter. A 10-minute conversation rather than a full proposal. A rough sketch rather than a finished design. The minimum viable preparation creates the start. The start creates the momentum. The momentum creates the result. The fourth execution tool is routine as the foundation of freedom. Routine feels like rigidity. It feels like the opposite of the creative, flexible, spontaneous life most people associate with freedom. But McKeown argues the reverse. Routine is what makes freedom possible. Every decision you make consumes cognitive energy. The more decisions your day requires, the less capacity you have for the decisions that actually matter. Routine eliminates the trivial decisions: when to wake up, what to work on first, how to structure the morning, so that your full cognitive capacity is available for the essential ones. Part 7: The Essentialist Life, Flow over Force. There is a quality to the essentialist life that McKeown returns to throughout the book, and it is worth naming directly. It is the quality of flow rather than force. The non-essentialist life is characterized by force. Force against a schedule that is too full. Force against commitments that should never have been made. Force against the feeling that nothing is ever enough, that more must always be added, that stopping is falling behind. The non-essentialist is always pushing upstream. The essentialist life moves differently. When you have identified the one thing that matters most, committed to it fully, eliminated the noise around it, and built the systems to execute it without friction, there is a sensation McKeown describes as almost effortless. Not because the work is easy. Essential work is rarely easy. But because every unit of effort is going in the right direction, there is no waste, no drag, no sense of energy disappearing into the void of the non-essential. McKeown uses the word flow deliberately. He is referencing Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept, the state of complete absorption in meaningful, challenging work where time distorts and output is at its peak. The essentialist creates the conditions for flow by removing everything that interrupts it. Distraction is not managed. It is designed out. Interruption is not tolerated. It is prevented. The environment is shaped around the essential, not the other way around. This is the point where essentialism becomes more than a productivity system. It becomes a philosophy of attention. Your attention is the most finite resource you have. Unlike money, it cannot be earned back. Unlike energy, it cannot be fully restored. Every moment of attention spent on the non-essential is a moment that cannot be redirected. The essentialist treats attention with the seriousness it deserves, as the one truly non-renewable resource of a human life. Part 8: Essentialism in Relationships and Organizations. McKeown extends the philosophy beyond individual productivity into how we relate to others and how organizations function. In relationships, the essentialist paradox is this: by doing less for more people, the non-essentialist believes they are being generous. They are available to everyone, responsive to everything, present for every request. But availability spread across everyone is depth offered to no one. The people closest to you, the relationships that matter most, receive whatever is left after every other demand has taken its share. For many people, that is very little. The essentialist inverts this. They are selectively unavailable so that they can be genuinely present for what matters. They say no to the peripheral so that the central relationships receive real attention, real energy, real time. This is not selfishness. It is the only way to give anything of substance to anyone. In organizations, McKeown argues that the essentialist problem is systemic. Most companies reward the appearance of busyness over genuine contribution. The person who is in every meeting, responds to every email within minutes, and volunteers for every initiative is visibly busy and therefore visibly valuable, even if their actual contribution to the organization's core mission is minimal. The person who declines meetings, protects focused work time, and says no to projects outside their essential contribution may appear less engaged, even if they are producing the majority of the meaningful output. McKeown calls for a fundamental shift in how organizations define and reward contribution. The question should not be, how busy is this person? It should be, what is their actual contribution to what matters most? Until organizations ask that question seriously, the culture of busyness will persist, and the essentialists within those organizations will be swimming against the current. He also addresses the essentialist leader. The leader who says yes to everything creates a team that says yes to everything. The requests cascade down. The overwhelm cascades down. The loss of focus cascades down. The essentialist leader, by contrast, models clarity. They are explicit about what the team's essential priority is. They protect the team's time and attention from non-essential demands. They make it safe to say no, not just permissible but expected. The team that knows what it is not doing is free to do what it is doing at the highest possible level. McKeown closes the book with what he calls the clarity paradox, and it is perhaps the most important idea in everything he has written. Success, as he noted at the beginning, creates options. Options create distraction. Distraction creates diffusion. Diffusion creates the feeling that despite doing more than ever, you are achieving less than you should. This is not a problem of effort. It is a problem of clarity. The paradox is that the moment you most need essentialism, when life is full, when opportunities are abundant, when demands are coming from every direction, is the moment it is hardest to practice. Because the very abundance that makes essentialism necessary also makes it feel unnecessary. Things are going well. Why cut anything? Why say no when yes is working? McKeown's answer is that the purpose of essentialism is not to manage abundance. It is to transcend it. The essentialist does not want a slightly better version of the overwhelmed life. They want a fundamentally different relationship with their own time and attention. One where the question is never how do I fit all of this in? But always is this the most important thing I could be doing right now? That question, simple, demanding, clarifying, is the entire philosophy compressed into a single sentence. And the answer to that question, practiced every day across every decision, is what separates the essentialist from everyone else. Not the amount of work done. The quality of the choice made. Less. But better. That is the whole thing. Greg McKeown did not write Essentialism to help you do more. He wrote it to help you stop. To stop the accumulation of the non-essential that masquerades as ambition. To stop the yes by default that masquerades as generosity. To stop the busyness that masquerades as productivity. What remains after you stop? The work you would choose if you could only choose one thing, the relationships you would protect if everything else fell away, the contribution you would make if you knew it was the only one you had left. That is your essential. That is what deserves your life. Everything else is noise. You already know the difference. Essentialism simply gives you permission to act like it.